I heard your mother, by the way, went like practically every night and saw you on Broadway.
Basically, 40 plus times she saw the play and sit down and discuss, we'll call it thoughts, not notes. But her thoughts on my performance that particular night. And she'd go in there sometimes and didn't tell me she went, yeah, I was there Tuesday. I was like, what, you were? Like, she'd have, yeah, actually my thoughts from Tuesday, and they're different from tonight, John David, let me tell you. So every time, especially on Sunday, it was our last show, she'd take me out to dinner, and I'm thinking, oh man, another good week, and we discussed everything. And she's like, you did great, baby, I love you. Now here's what I think. I was like, oh man.
Wow.
So I loved it though. She's been with me every step of the way.
If you teach that girl that she living at the bottom of life, she gonna grow up and hate you.
I'm gonna teach her the truth. It's just where she living. Only she ain't got to stay there. Turn your head over to her side.
Well, that might be your bottom, but it ain't mine. I'm living at the top of life. I'm gonna just take my life and throw it away at the bottom. I'm in the world like everybody else. The way I see it, everybody else gotta come up a little taste to be who I am.
You right at the bottom with the rest of us.
Well, if you believe that's where you at, you gonna act that way. And if you act that way, that's where you gonna be. Hey, Doka, Bunny say all color folks living at the bottom of life. I try to tell her she think that's where she gonna be. You think you living at the bottom of life? Is that how you see yourself?
I'm just living the best way I know how. I ain't thinking about no top, no bottom.
That's what I try to tell Bernice. I don't know where she got that from. Sound like something Avery would say. Everything because the white man give him a turkey for Thanksgiving, that make him better than everybody else. That gonna raise him up at the bottom of life. Well, I don't need nobody to give me a turkey. I get my own turkey. All you got to do is get out my way. I get me 2 or 3 turkeys.
You can't even get a chicken, let alone 2 or 3 turkeys. Talking about get out your way. Ain't nobody in your way.
Welcome to the actor's side today. Relatively new career for this actor. He started off in football, of course, from a very famous family name now. A family dynasty is starting to build, I would say, particularly with his new film, The Piano Lesson, terrific movie. This is John David Washington. Hi.
Hello, good to see you.
Welcome to the actor's side.
Thank you.
I know we've started talking about this a while ago and doing this, and I said, I got to have you come in, so thanks.
Telluride, right? We were in
Telluride, yeah. Where the movie premiered. Was that the first time you'd been in Telluride?
Yeah, that was my first time in Telluride.
How did you like that? It's kind of a different kind of film festival.
Yeah, it's very artist friendly, right? There was, I don't know, it just felt like a collective of artists that geek out about art and films and the way they're made. They like to discuss it in high altitude environments, so you got to make sure you get your wind up. You might see a bear when you walk to a premiere, you know what I mean? You never know, it's all exciting. Yeah.
We did, we were in a restaurant there and a bear came in the back looking for where they dumped the food.
See, I missed it, but I heard about a bear just roaming around campus.
Yeah.
Maybe the bear's trying to get into one of them screenings, who knows?
Yeah, maybe the bear can be discovered, I don't know.
Or is the bear a critic? We don't know what side he's on.
But I remember sitting at lunch with you and Malcolm,
That's right.
your brother,
Yes.
younger brother, who
Yes.
is the director of The Piano Lesson.
Yes, he is.
And your mother was sitting right next to me, Pauletta,
Yes.
just raving on and on. She is your #1 fan.
She's a big fan, yes, yeah. But I include her a lot in the process. Every time I get a script that I'm really excited about or really thinking about doing, she reads it first.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's true.
And has she ever told you, nope, not this one?
I'm not gonna say if she has or hasn't, but it's usually in the stages when I'm getting into it, when I'm gonna do it,
Right.
and we start to read together, and she tells me what's not working that I'm doing, and I've had to tell her a couple of times, especially on Malcolm and Marie, when I'm like, just trying to hear the words. I wasn't acting or anything. I didn't make any specific choices, and she would critique me like, that's not it at all. You got to go back. I'm like, Mom, we're just reading it. I'm not actually acting yet. So she's a tough critic, but I depend on her.
Malcolm and Marie, speaking of that, with Zendaya,
Yeah.
Is an intense movie.
Yes.
I can see, you need a lot of rehearsal. It's just basically 2 people for most of it,
Yes,
you
yeah.
and her. It's kind of reminded me of like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, that intense kind of relationship.
Well, thank you. I mean, that was kind of the intention. What comes to mind too also is Cassavetes' Faces.
Yes.
Just a very naturalistic way of working. And the same goes for this film as well, Piano Lesson. Just the natural, exchange between, siblings and family members. We wanted to, I know some people don't like this phrase, but opening up the play and giving it a cinematic language that is rooted in naturalistic movements in human behavior.
Well, you have to open it up for cinema. It's a
think so.
completely different thing, which is interesting to talk about because you played it on Broadway for several months with some of the cast members who are in the movie now as well.
Yes.
Some of them came to do the film as well, including Samuel L. Jackson. Which
Jackson.
had to be amazing
Yes.
because he started in the theater and he actually played Boy Willie before you did.
Originated the role, 1987 repertory.
Way before you did.
Way before I did, yeah. Lloyd Richards directed, August Wilson obviously wrote it, and he's told this story publicly where Charles Dutton, who ended up doing the play on Broadway, Tony Awards and all that, he was off doing Crocodile Dundee 2 apparently, and so then and Samuel Jackson took over and originated the role.
And originated the role. So is there a bit of intimidation when you walk in and know that you're playing opposite an actor who originated the role? Or are you totally confident in doing your version of it and he basically stays out of that?
Both could be true. I was extremely terrified. I found myself, I hold him, at one of the greats of all time. He and both Michael Potts, who's done all August Wilson's plays.
Yeah.
So I revere these men so much, so highly. So there was a lot of intimidation, knowing that he knows this play inside and out. He's lived with this play 30 plus years. Yeah. At the same time, I know what I was going into. I signed up for it. I know I needed to find out who I was on the other side of this experience. So it's feast or famine. I was either going to fall or become 10 feet tall. And so I knew he and Michael Potts would only respect me if I go for it, if I fully commit. So with that attitude in mind, I went for it. I gave it my best shot, and they were super supportive.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So when you do go into this was your Broadway debut.
Yes, it was.
Was it your theater debut?
First time I got paid to do theater. I attended HB Studios, and I've done some way off street Broadway, if you will. But
how far off?
well, like weird basements, classrooms, like different places. We set up. I did a play called The Dutchman, and actually Stephen Henderson, who's another Wilsonian, directed both I and Lisa Heckman in that play, and we wanted to get it. We wanted to get it produced when we couldn't get it produced at the time. This was a while ago, but this was the first time where people were watching, critics were writing. It was this was the big leagues for this piano lesson, and again, I knew what the challenges were. So it's August Wilson, Broadway, my debut, Samuel Jackson. We got the veterans there. This was the kind of challenge, the kind of pressure that I signed up for. I needed.
Not to mention that your director on Broadway was Samuel Jackson's wife, wonderful actress herself.
That's right.
And director LaTanya.
Yes.
So how was she?
She was great. She's again a Wilsonian as well. She set in place the rules and standards of what we're going to do, what our responsibilities were as theater actors for the play, to amplify and uplift August Wilson's words. That was the priority. And it was a master class, really. It felt like I've done HB Studios. I studied there, but this was like the master course, in learning what real acting is all about, particularly stage acting, and what the responsibilities and requirements are for that.
Yeah. So when you move on to the movie, Danielle Deadweiler was an addition to the film cast. She wasn't in the play. And
Corey Hawkins as well.
And Corey Hawkins.
Yes.
It obviously was going to be a different thing because now your younger brother, Malcolm, is directing you, and so that's a unique kind of dynamic, I imagine.
I know. I've gotten feedback a lot of times. Both of us have gotten a lot of feedback. Well, how did you do it? I would have killed my sibling. And I know. So I guess I understand that, but and it just shows how lucky and blessed we are, because we love each other, but we actually like each other. All of us as siblings. When we gather around, we talk movies and sports and music all the time. So I didn't honestly look at this experience going into it as working with my brother. I was looking at it as a fan of the director. He has a music video. He's done a music video that I loved. He's done some shorts that I've really been into. I saw his senior thesis at AFI. We all, the family, been waiting on him to do something for years. We're like, come on, you've graduated so long ago. Let's go. And so he chose this, and I was like, what? You gonna choose this? This is like a fool's errand, man. This is a tough one. And I loved it. So like the challenge I was talking about before, what I needed to find out who I was on the other side, I think he had the same mirroring feelings and mission.
Yeah. So how did you change the role for movies? I mean, just from what you did on stage, you can say, I'm used to doing this 8 times a week, every night. I've got this character down, in my opinion, and then you go and do the movie. What changed?
Well, a couple of things. That mentality of I got the character down was that was the wrong way to go. It's a different medium. I had to relearn the play in a way because this is the screenplay, not the play. There were certain rules I had set by LaTanya Jackson. There's a certain way of doing things on stage. All that had to be broken. Like I mentioned before, it was more of the Cassavetes style of acting in this one, a more naturalistic style of acting. So I had those responsibilities. I had to really focus on and really lean on behavior for the film. You know, my interiority and intentions were somewhat similar, but it changes everything when you're focusing more on behavior and human behavior, and my instincts took over more so in the film. Yeah. And because of some of the monologues and some of the things, lines that got cut down, still infused in the cinematic language and the visual experience of August Wilson in the play, but my responsibilities were different because the words were a little different.
Yeah, and Malcolm did a really good job, I thought, particularly in the second half, of evoking the spirituality, all of this, you know, which you can do to a degree on stage, and it's a different experience, but it's very cinematic.
Well, that's the advantage of cinema. You're able to, again, I said our job as actors to amplify and uplift the words on stage. But when the director can do it, he can do this with the visual cues, with the music cues, with the different, with the props, with the locations as well. We get to go to Mississippi, see the dirt, see the land. We get to go to parts of Pittsburgh where they're actually selling the watermelons. Those are lines in the play, but in the movies you get to see it. Yeah, and I think that's a huge advantage for us.
That was great. He's such an interesting character because he's got his own ideas of what he wants to do versus the Danielle Deadweiler character, you know, and she's got a whole other opinion.
Whole idea,
so it's this, idea.
It's
this
a collision.
Family dynamic there that I found fascinating for you to be able to play.
Thank you. Indeed it was. It was such a fascinating character. Boy Willie is somewhat of a walking contradiction. He's a paradoxical in his philosophies on faith and family and God and Jesus. And there's literally lines about how he conquers death, and that feels like he gives him the power to stand up to white folks. And it's interesting because it almost serves as a defense mechanism because he's lost, because he's his abandonment issues, because of what happened to his father, his whole family. So he has this sort of this shield of confidence and brashness that might necessarily be real because of what he's lost, but he needs it to overcome that loss.
You know, I mentioned Malcolm, obviously. Your sister was involved in the production of this as well?
Katya Washington, producer, who also produced Malcolm and Marie as well.
And,
it was my second time working with her. She has good taste.
And of course, your father, Denzel, is a producer.
Yes.
And actually, he's the one that envisioned doing all of August Wilson's, bringing them all to
the entire century cycle.
And I think this is the third. Let's see, Fences.
Yes, the third.
And then Ma Rainey, and now this one.
This is the third.
So he's got a few more to do. But
yes, he does. Yeah. Mission's not complete yet.
Yeah. So I was actually talking to him on a panel the other night, and he just brought up. He just goes like, "Yep, got the Washington family dynasty going on."
He
now.
said that?
Yes, he did.
Wow.
That's how he phrased it.
Wow. Well, you know, I hope we made him proud. I hope we made Samuel Jackson proud, Michael Potts proud. I mentioned Stephen Henderson proud.
Yeah.
You know, all the Wilsonians. You know, it's important. And to me, August Wilson's obviously, I think he's a genius. He's a poet. He's spherical in the way he writes, and intergenerational. These words and these subject matters, these stories, these characters, are relatable today. And our mandate, you know, the job, the mission was to be able to invite the newer audience, a younger audience, into the August Wilson century cycle, and how we can relate to these stories and these experiences that we know very well, that we've seen before, but in a different way, in a way that's communicated to make the younger generation feel included, and then share with the OGs, the senior Wilsonians what their take on our history is. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think it's very important too, because this does have a lot of relevance to a younger audience now too.
I mean, and you can see that with the music cues. We have Frank Ocean in there, we got Fela Kuti in there, we got Salt in there, you know, with music cues. Obviously, Alexander Desplat, his wonderful, brilliant score is in there. We got Erykah Badu, the legendary Erykah Badu in there.
I know, that was great. You know, she just comes in and, whoa.
And kills. I'm telling you that the day she filmed her scene, I mean, she put on a full concert. She was telling dirty jokes in the middle of the takes, and she was just, everybody there though, and she's legendary, right? Everybody there had the same and right spirit and wanted to do right by August Wilson. It was fantastic.
So I think the reason Denzel was talking about a dynasty is I asked him the question, do you encourage your kids to go into the business? And,
what'd he say?
And he said, that's when he said, well, no, not really, you know, but it is now a dynasty, you know, it is, and so, you know, and he's so proud of, oh my God, you know,
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
cool.
talk about your mother.
Yeah.
I heard your mother, by the way, went like practically every night and saw you on Broadway.
Basically, 40 plus times she saw the play and sit down and discuss, we'll call it thoughts, not notes. But her thoughts on my performance that particular night. And she'd go in there sometimes and didn't tell me she went, yeah, I was there Tuesday. I was like, what, you were? Like, she'd have, yeah, actually my thoughts from Tuesday, and they're different from tonight, John David, let me tell you. So every time, especially on Sunday, it was our last show, she'd take me out to dinner, and I'm thinking, oh man, another good week, and we discussed everything. And she's like, you did great, baby, I love you. Now here's what I think. I was like, oh man.
Wow.
So I loved it though. You know, she's been with me every step of the way of this. It's interesting. I spent a lot of time in North Carolina, where her family's from, and based my character a lot on my upbringing and my roots there. Yeah. And so I spent the birthday there months before we started rehearsal for the play. And we would run lines everywhere, my mom and I. So we had a celebration, we'll say, a birthday celebration. There was some toasting involved, we'll say. Right. I wasn't feeling my best the next morning, right? She woke me up like training for a samurai or like an athlete or something, woke me up and made sure we ran lines that day, hungover. So I can say I know this role inside and out if I could spew the language hungover.
Yeah, I heard Denzel was on Jimmy Kimmel or something, and he asked him how many times he went, and he said, well, I was working, I was overseas, but he said I went, and he didn't tell you. He
surprised me. Yeah, he got me good. That was a good one because he was shooting, I believe, Equalizer 3 or something like that in Italy.
Yeah.
And he surprised me, and that was a good one. And I never want to know who's there.
Would that freak you out?
Oh man, my goodness! Uncle Sam Jackson, he would mess with us and tell us who was there. One time we were after a prayer. We usually do a prayer before we go on, and then when we broke, he said, you know, Oprah's here tonight, and I freaked out. Like, why would you tell me that? Right? It's like moments before we go on.
Oh my God.
So I really don't like when I know people. Even my friends, when I set up tickets for them, I tell them to get with the producer and they'll hook it up, but don't tell me which one you're going to.
Right.
Yeah.
Were you always into acting? Because we all know you had a football career, and you know, I think you're still the top rushing record holder at Morehouse.
I think so. I hope so.
I think you still got your record here.
Cool, good.
So you did that, but were you always intending to go into acting?
Always. I always.
From a young age?
Well, I always wanted to. As I got older, and you know, my father started becoming more famous, more popular. I was noticing how, you know, my relationship to people were changing, and my relationship my stance in the world seemed to be different, how I was looked at. So I wanted to protect myself more, and I found sports was able to help me do that, to find my independence. And so I went that route, but I've always wanted to I was going to say to play football. I wanted to play football too, but I always wanted to act. Seeing my father come home with the red hair when he was getting ready for Malcolm X, or have a trumpet, and he was playing the trumpet, getting ready for Mo Better Blues. I remember I was really young, but when he was doing Richard III, and we would walk around New York, and he'd recite his lines, the Shakespearean lines. That's when I fell in love with Shakespeare.
Is that right?
I was like, oh my God, and I saw him on stage do that, and like I want to do that one day.
He's doing Othello next.
Yeah, he is.
It's wild.
But he loves it. Yeah. But I find that a lot of these great artists that I love, they still love it. Sam Jackson, his attitude about it, he loves this. I got to work with Mr. Nolan, Mr. Spike Lee. They love what they do. They have this like youthful energy about them when they're around set, and there's something to that. All the things that they've accomplished, they still have the same approach as I do, that I'm still learning, like they're still learning. It's great.
Speaking of Spike Lee, Wasn't that your film debut? Were you not in Malcolm X somehow a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, yeah. I was right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, good pickup. Yep. Yeah, I was. I got a line. I said, I'm Malcolm X. I'm the first kid that stands up.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, that was a good experience.
Yeah.
And then years later, we got to collab again. I'll say.
Well, I'll say you really did one of my favorite movies, and it won an Academy Award for. It was nominated for a bunch of them. One Spike,
Yes.
actually, a screenplay, which of course was Black Klansman.
Klansman.
And you played. This was a real guy. That you played,
real person.
based
Ron
on his
Starworth.
book.
Yeah.
Ron.
Ron Starworth.
That was such a great performance.
Thank
I
you.
mean, alternately kind of horrifying in some ways.
Of course, yeah, definitely.
But really funny,
Yeah,
too.
a lot of humor. Well, it was a truth is stranger than fiction example of the power of story in film. And I think there's no other director that could have nailed the tone of the story and the subject matter than Spike Lee. I was so proud of that film to be a part of it. And that was my first time really leading a film as well, or having a significant role in something.
Yeah.
And it was great to be there with Spike Lee. We premiered it at Cannes Film Festival, and
I was there.
10 minutes standing ovation. It was incredible.
I was in fact at the after party too,
Oh.
where I lost somehow. I mean, Spike Lee was standing on furniture and things,
Yeah,
going
yes.
crazy
Yeah, it was
at that party,
a heck
and
of a night.
everyone's there, and I lost my credential. You know, when you lose your credential
Oh.
in Cannes, it's a nightmare. I'm crawling under everybody on the dance floor looking for my credential.
No kidding.
Yeah,
it was kind of dark in there too. Did you get it? Did you retrieve
I never found it.
Oh,
So I had to
man.
go and sign in again, and you even have to go to the police station when you lose your credential.
Oh, what a hassle.
But yeah, so that happened at your party.
But it was that wild. I mean,
I know.
it was a wild night. It was also because of we were celebrating this filmmaker that they love him out there. They love him everywhere, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But it was great with this movie and this new cast. It was a great celebration. It was a great time.
It's amazing. Now, you also mentioned, I heard you, I always pick up on things, you mentioned Nolan,
Yes.
meaning Christopher Nolan.
Yes, sir.
Meaning
Mr. Nolan.
Tenet.
Yes.
Which came out during the pandemic, so unfortunately it didn't get the full theatrical kind of experience that movie really deserved. But I went down, I saw it in IMAX or somewhere in Irvine. It was at the Irvine Spectrum.
Oh wow. Yeah.
you know, and I really wanted to see it theatrically.
Thank you for
Because
saying.
Warner Brothers was putting all their stuff on Max at the same time.
I remember.
I think it actually drove Christopher Nolan away from Warner Brothers.
I'm sure he's talked about it, but
Yes, he
yeah,
has.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was a really interesting, complex movie and role. What was it like working with him on
Oh,
that?
man, it was a dream come true. And again, like I've mentioned this before, to me, he's actor friendly. He embraced different takes, a variety of ways to do something, to tell the truth. What I found the most surprising was because he's so, precise. He knows exactly what he wants, but yet he leaned on his actor's interpretation of what he wrote. He leaned on the instincts and the variety of takes that you can provide. He loved when Rob would do something different. He told me, like, I love to keep doing it differently. And I was a surprise to me, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, that and his sense of humor. I improvised, I improv'd a couple lines in that film, and he loved it, and he kept it in there. I couldn't believe it, because everything's so precise. But
Yeah.
yet he also liked to be surprised. So that was a nice treat.
Yeah. And there's so many movies you've already done that are really impressive. I focused on Old Man and the Gun, which I saw. That
If you
remains-
blink, you'll miss me though.
Yeah, I know, but that was Robert Redford's last movie. He said, "This is it. I'm leaving the business. Goodbye." Not
Yeah.
the business necessarily, but I mean acting.
Yeah.
And that was it.
I got to spend some time on that set. I had a lot of days off, we'll say.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to soak it up and learn, and I got to talk to Mr. Redford, and he was very gracious. He talked to me about 15 minutes in between a setup, and it was great. I'm like looking at him like, man, you're still doing it. And again, he's another one that's still very passionate about the art,
Right.
and where the business was and where it should be and all that kind of stuff, which I won't talk about. publicly.
Well,
but
no,
it was
it's
great.
cool because you've been working with these people who are stand-up people for the business, for
Yeah.
theatrical,
Yes.
for all of that. It's important. Now, you know, you have very good taste in who you're working with here.
I've been very blessed, very blessed. You know,
Yeah.
I did a film called Beckett, and you know, Luca Guadagnino was a producer on that with Ferdinando was the director, and just learning from them as well. It's been a great journey, and again, I'm living my childhood dream. You know, I watched Glory growing up religiously. You know, I was just like off book for that entire movie. And I could see myself on set. I could see myself, you know, doing this for a living. So I pinch myself all the time when I'm on set with some of these great auteurs, and just extremely grateful to be doing
Are
it.
you just born with something like this when you're, you know, son of a very famous actor? Because you said you
What do you mean?
Well, you said you wanted to go establish yourself
Yeah.
in football and things, and so I'm just wondering because you clearly wanted to
Oh
do
yeah,
this.
I see what you're saying.
You
Well,
know?
well, you know what's interesting? It was very important for me, and this is the last gift football gave me, was auditioning for Ballers. Ballers is what got me
Right.
my start. It was an
Absolutely.
open call. They were looking for ball players, actual football
Oh,
players.
that
auditioning.
was it.
And so I didn't tell my father that I was acting, that I was auditioning or anything. I wanted to wait till I got the gig. If I got the gig. The plan wasn't even get the gig. The plan was to get comfortable in auditioning and then go to New York and study, which I ended up doing still, but I ended up booking the job and I got to go to New York and study. But the whole point was when I got it, then I told them. Well, it was getting closer to the, when I was getting close, because I was like, maybe I didn't get it, but I got close. So I didn't, I hid it from a lot of people,
Yeah.
I just wanted to.
That was a great show. Ricky,
so,
you played
Ricky
Ricky.
Cherry, yeah. What a guy, yeah.
I remember,
Yeah.
My wife, who's not a football person at all, was obsessed with that show.
Really?
Oh, watched
Wow,
every
no kidding.
single episode.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
I'm going like, how? You know, and
To watch the train wreck, I guess.
she just loved it.
Oh, that's good. Well. Yeah, I mean, Peter Berg is another one. Is
Yeah.
great, a great filmmaker. He ushered me in too. Sheila Jaffe, who was a casting director, she believed in me. So I credit them for getting me started.
It's so cool, yeah, doing all of these kind of different things. And you did mention Malcolm and Maria, and I just wanted to find out, Zendaya and you really, how long, that was during the pandemic.
Pandemic, yeah.
That sort of came up as a way to do a movie on a
Yes.
smaller level because of the
Yeah.
pandemic.
And it happened quite fast. Like we developed our chemistry and the script's ideas sort of on the spot, in a parking lot rehearsing, outside in a where were we? We were Big Sur, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
so it was open, remote area. So it was how it came together so fast. And obviously Sam and Zendaya have quite the shorthand. They've got the Euphoria run. So it was just I was able to learn from them and
Sam Levinson,
Sam
yeah.
Levinson. So it was great to be able to see how they do things.
Oh yeah, it's wild. Where are you going next? What do you
Where
want
am
to do
I
next?
going next? Well, I want to continue these collaborations. I want to continue to discover, myself as an artist. I don't know. I'm trying to learn. I'm open to do it all.
You are doing it all.
Trying to.
I didn't even mention The Creator, which I told you before.
love Gareth.
I love that movie. I
Thank
loved
you.
your relationship with that young girl.
Yes,
It was incredible.
Yeah.
Young actress.
Yeah, it's. I tell you, like Gareth Edwards is a sweet man, and I think he's a visionary. He's so brilliant. And working on that film, we shot it almost like documentary style. You know what I mean? It was just so open. We'd literally dress up in our wardrobe and walk like Shibuya Crossing, walk different parts of Indonesia, interacting with real people. You know what I mean? And he'd film it. It was great. It was a great experience.
Yeah, that was a really great, in that genre, it sometimes can be really tough, it gets lost in all the special effects and things. That was very
It had a
human.
lot of heart,
Yeah, it was a
and-
very human story.
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah, it really comes through, which is great to
Thank
be
you.
able to do that. Well, Piano Lesson is something that everybody's going to be able to see, hopefully in theaters as well as on Netflix, and not to be missed. This is John David Washington. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.